Hello and welcome to this tutorial about the Jetstream 4.1. I hope that you will have some use of this tutorial, and I was doing this because I wanted to learn the aircraft myself, and I must admit that it's quite a learning curve before you get a hang of it. But as soon as you begin to understand all the systems and learn how to handle the aircraft, you will really appreciate to fly this aircraft. The flight management system is quite simple, so you have to hand fly some SIDs, for example, and it makes this aircraft a lot of fun to manage and to fly. This tutorial will be as realistic as possible. I have tried to read through the FCOM and make notes along the way in order to provide you with the correct information about how to operate these aircraft. Alright, so before we enter the aircraft, I will provide you with some information about the limitations and how the system works on this aircraft. The max operating altitude is 25,000 feet. We can carry 33 passengers and crew members. The max demonstrated winds, crosswind is 35 knots. The tailwind has a maximum of 10 knots, and the maximum weights, we have the ramp weight 24,110 pounds. The maximum takeoff weight is 24,000 pounds. The max landing weight is 23,300 pounds. The maximum zero fuel weight is 21,400 pounds. And we can carry 1,137 pounds of cargo, the traffic load. And we have some maximum speeds. It's below 17,000 feet. We have 250 knots, and above 17,000 feet we have 240 knots as our maximum speed. It has two turboprop engines with the constant speed props, and the aircraft also has an icing feature which allows the airframe and the wings and the engines to accumulate ice, and you really have to manage the anti-icing systems correctly on this aircraft. Okay, so let's enter the cockpit. We will use the checklist, of course, which is included in the PMDG Operations Center. So print it out and have it with you, because it can save you a lot of trouble. Let's begin with the acceptance check. The landing gear is checked, down, flaps at 0 degrees, retracted. Parking brake and shocks. Parking brake is set. Battery, we will check. The minimum voltage is 24 volts, so it's okay. We can turn on the batteries. We can use the ground power, so we'll turn it on. We can switch to ground. The nav lights on. Trims, we have one trim there, the elevator trim. We have the rudder trim and the aileron trim, and they are centered, and gear pins are stowed. Acceptance check is completed. If you want to mute the warnings, you can just press the mute or unmute button here. So we will cancel the warnings and press mute. Let's go ahead and do the cockpit preparation checklist. Aircraft documentation checked, emergency equipment checked, winterization kit checked, gear pins stowed, windshields clean and undamaged, seat and rudder pedals adjusted, crew oxygen. We have 1,250 psi. The minimum required is 1,200 psi, so that's okay. The audio control panel is over here and is partly functional. The CVR is not simulated, but I believe it's this panel here. The overhead panel is checked. The spoiler switch, let's zoom out. The spoiler switch is off. The autopilot trim power switch is on. The power reserve is down here, off. The engine gauges is normal. Standby instrument power supply. Instrument power supply checked. Radar is not simulated. Roll and pitch disconnects is the red ones over here, and they should be fully in, which they are. Pressurization is auto, is checked. Hydraulics, we have the hydraulics over here, and it's okay, checked. Air conditioning panel, we have the flows off for the moment. Power levers, just a note here, the gust locks should be removed, so you can test the throttle and condition lever. So we will full and free, and the condition levers full and free.
Condition levers taxi.
Standby gear indicator checked. And if we continue our cockpit preparation, on the first officer side we have a hatch here, and under the hatch we have different system tests. We have the fire system, we have lights and oral warning, and defaults are indicating. Same on the right. And indicating fault. We have the smoke, the toilet smoke. We have the stall test working, right side working. Okay, so let's have a look at the air conditioning panel. We have the flows here, which you will have to manage throughout the flight. When you take off and land, the flows should be on number 3 on both sides. And if you do anti-ice takeoff or landing, they should be off. And while in flight, you may want to increase to whatever you wish to have. I usually fly with the flows on 5, but remember that when you do the takeoff and landing, the flows should be on number 3. If you fly on one engine and have to one with the one engine inoperable, you have to turn the flows to off. And for the next step, now I usually program the FMC, but I'm not going to show you how to do it in this tutorial, because I have already done a tutorial about the flight management computer, so please check it out if you want to see how it works. Let's have a look at the weight and balance sheet. These numbers are interchangeable, so if you would like to have a certain amount of passengers, you can change it here, and the aircraft weight is actually changed also. However, the fuel is not interchangeable, and you'll have to change it within FSX. So let's have a full plane today. We have approximately 1 hour to our destination, and here you can see all the weights. The fuel we will have is 1,800 pounds, and our takeoff weight will be approximately 20,000 pounds. Here you can see the start index, the trim 4.0 units. And the landing, if you change the flight duration, you see that the numbers are changing also. So our landing altitude, landing weight will be 19,000 pounds. So you may want to write it down, because when we are going to program the V speeds later on, we will need these weights. You have the speed cards stowed on the right side of your seat, so press on it and you will bring up the speed card, and you can press the right mouse button to go to the appropriate weight. And we can see that with flaps 9, or V1 will be 103, rotate 103, and V2 110. And step to your landing weight. And for landing we will use flaps 25. So we have a target speed of 121, or VREF will be 106. In order to start the engines, we will have to make sure that the engines are on the start locks. In order to do this, we will have to depress these latch releases and pull back on the condition levers all the way. And then we will pull back and press the unfeather. And we will do the same with the left engine, or engine number 1. And if we take a look at the prop, we can see that it will move and lock into the start position. This will take a couple of seconds. So now the prop has stopped and we are ready. So just set the throttle to neutral.
Condition levers taxi.
Let's have a closer look at the engine gauges and how the APR works. APR stands for Automatic Power Reserve, and is used on takeoffs with the engine anti-ice on. The APR should be off in a normal takeoff, and what it will do is that it will give you some extra boost if you need it. If you do a derated takeoff or reduced thrust takeoff, the APR should not be armed. The engine gauges works like an ordinary jet airplane. You can set the torque by rotating the knob here. Okay, so we have fuel the aircraft, so we can put the seatbelt signs on, and if you are flying on the night, you have the lights over here, and it will light up the cockpit so you can see everything. And also you have a panel flood over here which will light up the glare shield. It's time to start the engines. If you want to do a battery start, you will have to check so that the battery is more than 24 volts. So that looks okay. If we would like to start on the GPU, we will see that we have sufficient power, and the before start procedure will turn on the batteries, make sure that the avionics masters are off, turn on the beacon lights, and check so the seatbelt signs are on, turn on standby pumps, and the first officer will check so the right side is clear, and the captain will check so the left side is clear. Before start checklist, aircraft log released, checked, gear pins stowed, beacons on. Fuel, we have 1,800 pounds of fuel. The doors and refuel caps are closed. Batteries are on. It's time to start the engines with the help of the GPU. So we will start the left engine first, or engine number 1. We will open the lid so we can abort the start if we have to. Turn the start master to left ground and press start. And monitor the engine gauges. We don't want the EGT to go over 770 degrees, then we have to abort. They will stabilize in a couple of seconds. And we have a cutout. So we will close the lid, turn off the GPU, and make sure that the GPU has been disconnected. We will, before we disconnect the battery, we will have to turn the generator on, which I forgot. We will check so the left generator is providing us with power, and we will do the same thing with the right engine. Cut out. Okay, now with both engines started, we can turn on the generator number 2. We can turn on the avionics masters, and with both engines running, we can turn on the windshield heat and the air data. If you have only one engine, do not turn these on before you have both running. The AHRS will have a 3-minute run-up time, and do not move the aircraft during this time. And also when you do the shutdown, it will take 15 minutes for it to shut down properly. Meanwhile, we can set up our V-speeds. The red one is V1. I will set it to 103, and press this button and set the rotate to 103. 103. Press it again and set our V2, which will be 110. We can turn the flows to flow free, so it is set up for a takeoff. And it's also important to remove the start box. By doing this, you have to put the engines into reverse, and the start box is removed. And make sure that the parking brake is set with the after start check, emergency exit lights, armed, spoilers, armed, APR, we don't need that, so off. And we can set our flaps to 9. The jaw damper should be off for takeoff and landing, and if you want to use it, you can activate it once you have once you are in the air. And after start, don't forget to turn off the standby pumps. At this point, I usually set up the aircraft for departure. Initial climb today will be 11,000 feet. The runway heading is 079er, so we will set 079er, and you can see the heading there. If you want to see your route, you can press LNAV and full map, and you can zoom in by using these buttons. Taxi check, or taxi check, start locks removed, flaps 9 and indicating, trims 4.0 degrees, green, cap, understood and unmuted, instruments working. We have 076 heading and 1900 QNH 1013. Takeoff data is set. The takeoff briefing is completed. and the flight attendant advised. Taxi lights on. Brake off. And you only need a little thrust to get it moving. Okay, we have been cleared to line up. Let's do the departure check. Flight controls. Free. The takeoff warning system. We'll have to release the parking brake and hold the brakes and test. And if you have forgot something, for example the parking brake, you will hear a warning. Transponder to TA, traffic advisory. Departure checklist below the line. Ignition anti-ice off. Flows. Make sure that flows are set to 3 or less. The condition levers to flight. If you would like to do takeoff in icing conditions with engine anti-ice on, you will have to arm the APR, turn on the ignition, and turn on the engine anti-ice and prop, and make sure that you turn on the engine and elevator anti-ice before the prop. And also the flows should be set to off. And just disregard the warning. And when you turn off the anti-ice and when you are in the air, you can set the flows to 3 or 5 if you are in the air. Turn off the APR. Turn off the props first, then the engine anti-ice, and last the ignition. So if you're doing a reduced torque takeoff, the APR should not be armed. If you're flying through heavy precipitation, engine anti-ice on, or if the runway is contaminated, you will have to turn the ignition to continuous. Otherwise, it's not necessary. The jaw damper should be off for takeoff and landing, and off when the gust logs are engaged, or if you're flying on one engine. If you want to use the flight director for takeoff, you can press the go around button on the torque lever, and you will see that flight director is activated and it can be used for takeoff. If you want to activate the autopilot after takeoff as soon as possible, you can do it above 400 feet AGL, and you also need to press the autopilot button first, then select the mode, takeoff. Setting power.
Takeoff power set. $70 knots.
Checked.
V1, rotate. Positive rate of climb.
Gear up.
Gear up.
flaps up. Yaw damper on.
Flaps up.
And we can set the flows to 5. And we should aim for a climb speed of 170. That's the best climb speed. If you want to turn on the autopilot, you can press autopilot and nav, and you can see the captured, and altitude select and vertical speed for the IAS. And the IAS is working like the flight's level change in the Boeing. We can adjust the speed here, like 170. At 10,000 feet, we'll turn off the seatbelt signs, turn off the lights, and I see that they have been turned off somehow. After takeoff checklist, this is a little late. Landing gear up, flaps up, APR off, flows set to 5, lights off, condition levers as required, prop sync is on. So now we are on cruise and we have to manage the power. So I will reduce the thrust first, then monitor the engine gauges, and when I have set the right thrust, I will set the condition levers slowly, and the EGT should look like something like that when you are in cruise. This is a DME display. If we type in Sierra Bravo Golf, for example, we can see the distance to the VOR, and you can also change channel. Let's take a closer look on how the autopilots work. We have the heading and debug over here, and you can also see the heading in your navigation display. You have the nav, which we are flying on now, the L nav, and the navigation is flying on what you select up here. For example, we have L nav, and when we are flying the ILS, we can press the VL, and it will capture the localizer. We have the approach with glide slope, the back course, I don't use it very often, the altitude hold, the altitude select. You can arm an altitude if you want to change it, and select the vertical speed or the IIS, like the level change, or you will have the standby, which will disconnect the autopilot. So if we would like to change level to 10,000 feet, we will set 10,000, press the altitude select, which will arm, and then select vertical speed, for example. And when we have reached the altitude, it will automatically jump to altitude hold. Let's set up for our approach. We will fly the ILS, and we will set the frequency 109.9, 109.9, and switch. The landing altitude is 1,410 feet. And we will set our course, press the VL, go to course, and select 154, and it will disappear after a while, but don't worry, it's time to begin our descent. We will set our new altitude, which today will be 4,000 feet. Press the Alt select and vertical speed, and you can bring up the FMC and shows the rate of descent. And we will turn on, reduce the power. I'm doing the 10 checks, and we can set the flows to 3, and we can also turn off the prop sync and read the descent approach checklist. Altimeters is 1013, checked. Flight attendants is advised. Pressurization is set to 1410 feet. Spoilers are armed. Fuel balance is in limits. APR should be armed for landing. And the ice is not required. Landing data. We will set the decision height 200 feet AGL. So you have the decision height over here. 200 feet decision height. Set. Approach. Arrival briefing completed, and the descent approach check completed. If you are flying in mountainous terrain, you can disarm the ground proximity warning system, but the weather should be good and the visibility great. The glide slope can be inhibited by pressing this button. So it's time to intercept the localizer. So press the VL to bring up the ILS system or instruments. The needle is moving, so press nav to intercept the localizer. And press the approach to intercept the glide slope, and it has been captured. And flaps 9.
Flaps 9.
So we overshot it a little bit. Set the missed approach altitude 6,000 feet. And gear down.
Gear
We need to slow the speed down. Our VREF is 106 knots. Alright. So flaps 15.
Flat.
And set the heading, sync it, and the manual flight. 25. Landing checklist. Landing gear
25.
is down for runway 15. Flaps 25 set and indicating condition levels. Flight flows free. Flight attendant advised. Prop sync off and landing check completed. Minimums. Continue.
$100. 50, 40, 30,
Power to idle.
20, 10.
Do not use excessive reverse power as it can damage the engines, and apply brakes. Spoilers are up.
70 knots.
Checked. And power to idle. And condition levers
Condition levers taxi.
to taxi. And we are on the ground. So let's vacate to the right. And we will stop here for a moment and go through the cleanup procedure. Okay, so the cleanup procedures: spoilers off, flaps up, And lights,
Flaps up.
strobes, checked. We can actually turn off these now and press mute. APR off. Transponder to standby. And just a note for you to remember, do not turn off the avionics before you have completely stopped from the parking, because the system needs 15 minutes cooldown. We don't want to make the marshal or blind, so I will turn off the taxi lights. And he's facing another direction than the taxi marker. And he's never satisfied either, so it doesn't matter what you do. And stop. Thank you, sir. Let's engage the gust locks. And the parking brake is set, so we can turn off the engines. Turn off the avionics first. Batteries. Generators. And we're ready for shutdown. Seatbelts off. Beacon lights off. And emergency exit lights off. Alright, the shutdown check. Parking brake is on, right console is off, flows off, from free to off, emergency exit lights off, avionics masters off, generators off, seatbelt signs off, beacons off, and AFIS close out is transmit. Shutdown check completed. Before we leave, we should say goodbye to our fellow passengers. I think they look quite happy with landing and with the flight. This is an odd fellow. Look quite happy. Let's see what we have in the back. Yeah. There is a mafia boss and a bodybuilder. That's great. You really have to watch the CG and load sheet when you have this guy on board. Thank you for watching this tutorial and joining me on this flight. I really hope that you have learned something, because I certainly have learned a lot of this aircraft. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I may not be able to answer advanced questions, but you have the FCOM for reference. And if you want to look closer at the FMC, I have done a tutorial about it also, so please check my YouTube channel. Yeah, have a nice day, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.